Sexist chanting must be tackled, says FA after horrible footage. From the 5th of March 2015, the Football Association is calling on fans to report sexist abuse at games after being shown disturbing scenes of women officials and staff being subjected to obscene chants. Footage obtained by the BBC shows Chelsea's female medic Dr. Eva Carniero and female assistant referee Helen Byrne suffering taunts during recent matches. FA board member Heather Rabats described the abuse as horrible. She said it should not be tolerated, adding, we are absolutely encouraging people to report incidents like this. The footage was taken at Chelsea matches against Manchester City and Manchester United, as well as a game in the Football League. This season, 25 matchday incidents of sexist abuse have been reported to the anti-discrimination campaign group Kick It Out and equality group Women in Football, WIF. We've got something to do with women in football, the WIF, in our grassroots segment coming up as well, so stick around for that. Last season there were just 2 incidents. However, a lack of evidence means no club or fan has ever been punished by football's governing bodies. Manchester City admitted a breakdown in communication meant the usual investigation process was not followed. The club added a specific guidance on sexual abuse was introduced from the very next game and the new training program implemented. Man United said no complaint was made at the time, so any feedback of this nature after the event has to be referred to the police, which the club did within 24 hours. The Football Supporters Federation said it doesn't receive many complaints in relation to sexist chanting at games, although that isn't to say it doesn't happen, and that's a very important line. That's actually a very important line there. There have been a number of high-profile sexism cases in football in recent years. Sky Sports presenter Richard Keys resigned and pundit Andy Gray was sacked in 2011 for claiming that assistant referee Sian Massey did not know the offside rule because she was a woman. Premier League Chief Executive Richard Scudamore apologised last May after private emails he had sent to friends and colleagues were revealed to contain sexist content, and Northumberland County Football Association official John Cummings was sacked in 2014 for telling referee Lucy May that a woman's place is in the kitchen. Utterly disgraceful, to be perfectly honest. Carolyn Bradford, the chief executive of Mansfield Town, says sexist chanting is a big problem. When she joined the League Two club at the age of 29 in 2011, the headlines were about her blonde hair and looks rather than her university and legal qualifications. I've had fans chanting abuse at me, she said. It's hurtful. Radford said such abuse was not widely reported because women are kind of made to feel they should tolerate it. If it was racist language being chanted at me, perhaps we would do something about it, she added, but because it's banter, so to speak, I've got to flick my hair and just accept it. Anna Kessel, chairman of Women in Football, said sexist chanting continued at matches because stadium safety managers and stewards were often not briefed on how to recognise and deal with it. That contrasts with the stated zero tolerance approach to racist or homophobic abuse at games. Sexism in football is so entrenched within the culture of the game to a point where racism is recognised as wrong, but sexism is recognised as just banter, said Kessel. Women don't have the confidence to report it, which is one thing we're getting onto actually, and features girls on the ball. This is the message that we're getting through our network. They are very reluctant to complain. They feel they should put up with it. Women make up 20% of attendees at Premier League games. The FA also says it's trying to encourage more women to get involved in football via several initiatives, but Heather Rabats admitted more needs to be done to stamp out sexism in the game. The former Millwall deputy chairwoman said clubs, leagues and authorities need to take collective responsibility for tackling the issue. It's all about how we try and ensure the game is open and available to everyone, said Rabats, the only female on the 11-strong FA board. How to report sexist chanting, by the way. The FA have a number, 0800 085 0508, 0800 085 0508, or footballforall@thefa.com. There's also the Kick It Out number, which is 0207 684 4884. 0207 684 4884, info@kickitout.org, or via the Kick It Out app. And you can also email Women in Football with any incidents as well, info@womeninfootball.co.uk. As said in the grassroots segment, we will be having an initiative that they have just started up, as this past weekend was International Women's Day. Now, Now, sexist abuse claims at England versus Australia Cyprus Cup match. Claims that British soldiers shouted sexist abuse at the Australian women's team match during Friday's Cyprus Cup game with England are being investigated. The Football Association and Ministry of Defence are looking into allegations that a group of soldiers watching England's 3-0 win against Australia targeted Australia's 25-year-old defender Servet Uzunla. Two female England fans in Cyprus, who we know personally, said they were ashamed by the behaviour. Women in football and the FA have told fans to report sexist chanting. During the game, Jodie Taylor scored a hat-trick to give England the 3-0 group win over Australia and a place in the Cyprus Cup final. The second of those goals, an absolute belter. But Rachel O'Sullivan and Sophie Downey, who are girls on the ball, as you well know, from us sitting down with them for a pitch talk meets recently, who regularly followed the England women's football team, said 10 soldiers from a group of around 50 harassed Uzunla and the Australian substitutes throughout the match. They said they reported the abuse to the commander in charge at the end of the game, who apologised but claimed he hadn't heard any comments. We've been to lots of games before and we can engage in banter, but this wasn't banter, it was constant gender-specific abuse, said Sophie Downey. We weren't sure whether to tweet about it because it's the army and we didn't want to offend people. I'm a very proud English person and I'm very proud of what the army do, but I was ashamed of them today. Rachel O'Sullivan added one Australian player, number 6, Uzunla. They were harassing her over and over and over again throughout the game. They were making horrible comments, shouting at her, whistling. It was uncomfortable to hear. These are teenage girls and they were sexually objectifying them. One Australian fan, who asked to remain anonymous, added, this was a stunning one off that I've never heard before in women's football. I said to the army sergeant, this isn't a complaint as an Australian supporter, it's a complaint as a woman. It was beyond the pale. He was apologetic after the game and offered to apologise to the players. Australia manager Alan Stachich told BBC Sport, things that happen in the crowd are out of our control, but if there were some inappropriate remarks, I think it's something the British Army needs to look at. Rachel O'Sullivan added one Australia player. So definitely does need to be looked at, and the tweets that Girls on the Ball sent out, great to have the British Army here watching the game in Cyprus. Pity it was marred by embarrassing sexist behaviour. It was serious enough that we felt we had to bring it to light and back up the other complaints made. We were cautious about speaking out about the stuff that happened yesterday, but came to the conclusion that it shouldn't go unnoticed. I didn't hear much. I heard some off-the-cuff remarks, but I was focused on how our team was performing on the pitch. We haven't made an issue of it within our team. It had minimal impact on the group. That was from Mark Sampson. But basically, the British soldiers are based near Nicosia and attended last year's tournament without an incident as well. A Ministry of Defence spokeswoman said behaviour of the kind described as totally unacceptable and is not tolerated in the armed forces, where abuse, bullying and discrimination have no place. We are investigating these claims, and if it is found that any UK personnel have fallen below the high standards we expect, then appropriate action will be taken. The FA said it would investigate the claims, but that none of the English squad or management had heard any comments during the game and that they appreciated the British Army's support. Stewards and safety officers are being briefed on how to spot and tackle sexist abuse in football stadiums in the UK after Equality Group Women in Football, which represents more than 1,200 females, contacted all 92 Premier League and football clubs about the issue, and the FA is calling on fans to report sexist abuse at games after being shown disturbing scenes that we mentioned earlier. As said, we've got, not in the grassroots segment, but we've got a special feature segment up next talking about the Women in Football initiative that they have kicked off. But you know what? Sexist abuse of women, it's a disgrace. It legitimately is. You know what? It is one of them ones. It's worth playing this.
Hey, it's a disgrace! It's a disgrace! Hey, it's a disgrace! It's a disgrace!
And you know what? The fact of the matter is, I don't think I'm telling tales out of school here by saying that Sophie Downey and Rachel O'Sullivan, who are girls on the ball, you've got pitch talk support. We know that you are both credible, and you're not just going to shoot your mouths off and say something without proof of it. So it's one of them ones. And also you have the support of Pitch Talk and the Pitch Talk family. People need to report this kind of thing when it happens, because football is inclusive, not exclusive. Football is for everyone: man, woman, child, hermaphrodite, gay, straight, yellow, brown, white. Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It is for everyone. Football is for everyone, and that is not just for now, that is for life. The crowbar and an OWR there. The fact of the matter is, we can't have sexist chanting at games, because, and also, you know what, looking at Eva Carniero in particular, she's being sexually abused. She's receiving sexist abuse while she's at work, because she's Chelsea's physio. That is her job. That is what she does. So no one should have to put up with that at work. No one should have to put up with that generally. And I'm so glad. I am actually so glad that I am actually so glad that Girls on the Ball actually had the balls, for lack of a better term, to report it. Because at the end of the day, reporting is the first stage to eradicating. The more people that report it, the more attention that it gets. And the more attention that it gets, the more that the powers that be have to step up. I don't want to hear the FA saying, we're going to investigate, but we appreciate the British Army support. It's like, no. You say that if you find the people responsible for it, you're going to punish them. Because that's what needs to happen with ignorant people who want to chant sexist stuff. Punish uniformly and in a draconian fashion. That is what needs to happen. That is the rhetoric that the FA need to be coming out with. Because it's a disgrace. People should not have to put up with that. It's one of them ones. That's all I got to say about that. By the way, Man United have gone down 2 goals to 1. We're gonna come back into that in a second with the semi-final draw. But Gezzie Fizzle, Gman, and any of the Skypers, if you want to jump in on this issue, I personally think that this is even worse, because the British Army, who are supposed to be defending people's obviously rights and privileges, they're going out and laying their lives on the line, but that doesn't give you the right to shout sexist abuse at people. I don't give a damn who you are. You ain't got a right to be doing that and making people feel uncomfortable. And why would you go to football just to abuse someone? What is wrong with you? It's like spitting at someone. Why would you go to football just to do that? That's what I don't get. But Gezzie, you want to jump in on this before the G-Man comes in as well?
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I think you're absolutely right. I think the whole thing is absolutely disgraceful. It needs to be said. I really don't know what more can be said about it. You know, it really is terrible, and you know, a lot more needs to be done. I think there needs to be better systems in place for the reporting of this abuse. You know, we have systems in place for racial abuse and so on and so forth. So this is something else that we need to look at. It needs to be said. You know, at the same time, we need to raise awareness of it. And I think if there is anybody else that heard anything or saw anything, you know, I encourage them to come forward and make their voice heard, because at the end of the day, unless people speak up about the issue, it's not gonna be dealt with. It really is that simple.
I mean, I totally agree. I totally agree with you. Once again, I've got to congratulate, and on behalf of Pitch Talk, got to congratulate Sophie and Rachel, because they stood up and were willing to actually report it, because that's what you've got to do. You've got to report it, and you've also got to feel that you've got the support to report it as well. So it's one of the ones. I mean, the powers that be once again, the ball is in the court of the powers that be. Will they drop the ball again and sweep this under the rug? Or will someone actually be held accountable for their actions? Because I think this is what it's about, accountability. If people think they can get away with stuff, then they're more likely to try and get away with stuff. So, I mean, Gezzie, did you want to add anything else?
No, that was, I think you've kind of encapsulated it. But, you know, again, I think it's more for anybody else that had seen or heard anything, you know, to come forward and make their voices heard. You know, it's not a time to shy away from the issue. Now is the time for, you know, anyone affected by it, anyone who saw it, and the powers that be to stand up and actually face the issue, because this is the only way we're going to deal with it. You know, we have to say that it's not acceptable, you know, and deal with it just like any other major issue. Otherwise, you know, I'd actually argue that all of it is in vain. You know, that there really is no point if we're not going to stand up against it and act against it. You know, if we're not going towards it with that aim, then what are we doing?
See, for me, it's one of them ones where I mean, Brad Hicks has just said we'll always girls on the ball will always have my support because I'm not a wrong and like the fans who abuse Dr. Eva Carniero. And I think that's a great. I like that as a point. And I mean, the thing that concerns me is the thing that actually concerns me is the fact that there are people who actually just dismiss it as banter, and it's like, for me, like I said, or I think it was Sophie Downey, one of her Facebook statuses, is that people used to excuse racism with that sort of rhetoric. So it's one of them was that any sort of abuse in that way is not on. And as I said, racism used to be dismissed in that manner as well. And now but as the years have gone by, people have stood up against it. We need that same thing with sexism, because we can't live in a civilized society where this kind of stuff is still a problem. Because of ignorant morons, and it's always a moronic minority. It's always a moronic minority, and that's the thing that we've said for years. It's always the moronic minority that ruins it for everyone. I think the burden is on the powers that be to help stamp out sexism. I think that's where the burden has to lie. Because as I said, at the end of the day, you can't like with like what I said in terms of Papi Cisse and Johnny Evans spitting, you can't have people in positions of power and people who are in the army. Bro, these people are supposed to be role models. Once again, it's role models not doing their job, not living up to being role models, which is not good. So it's one of them ones, man. I'm just not happy that I wouldn't be happy if anybody with anybody who puts out this sexist abuse, let alone members of the army as well. I just don't get it. And the FA are sending out mixed messages with what they've been saying as well. Oh yeah, we're going to investigate this, but we'd like to thank the army for their support. And it's like, it's like either you're castigating or you're brown nosing. Which one is it? And it sounds like the FA is brown nosing, and I am concerned that nothing will happen with this. I mean, Gezzie, I don't know if you share those same concerns. And Gman, let us know when you're back as well.
Well, you know, it's like I was saying before, in that we have to essentially deal with it now and deal with it in a serious manner, or forget about it. You know, at the end of the day, you know, if football is going to be seen as a progressive and modern sport, this is what needs to be done, and the powers that be need to take affirmative action. We were talking earlier about, you know, how the FA dealt with the Johnny Evans and Papi Cisse Spitgate as it's been coined, incident, right? And how decisive they were with that. So I'm looking at it like this. I'm like, okay, it's good that you were decisive on that. Now this is another far more serious issue that also needs decisive action. So, if you really want to establish yourself as a top footballing association in the world, right, then you need to take a similar stance in terms of rapidity of response and, of course, the forcefulness of punishment with this incident as well. It really is as simple as that. It's either you continue in the same vein, or, as I say, effectively we forget about it. And right about now, if we're looking for equality in football, in terms of men's football, women's football, especially abled football, so on and so forth, then all of these things need to be addressed, and addressed quickly. So it's going to be very interesting to see what comes out of this from all the powers that be that are involved. But as I say, it needs to be done. It needs to be done. Now is not the time to shy away from it. Now is the time to make decisive action, take decisive action, and show that you're serious about dealing with the issue.
Of course. Of course. I mean, as I said, it's just concerning. It's just concerning that, as I said, my worry is the fact that it will go unpunished. That would be. I mean, that would be my main concern. So, I mean, I don't know, man. I mean, if any of our Skypers want to jump in on this point, then please let us know. Because I think, again, this is another plague. This is another plague that riddles the game. That is riddled within the game. And as said, the fact that some people can just dismiss it as banter, it's not on. That some people can actually just dismiss it as that, because it's not that. And I said, we've seen abhorrent things said and excused as banter, and it's like, no, that's not. So I don't know, man. I just think the whole thing's a legit disgrace. I mean, G-Man, are you there with us?
Yeah, I'm here with you.
Well, what's your view on the point that we've been discussing at the moment in terms of the sexist chanting, the FA calling on fans to report sexist abuse after the footage has emerged of that happening to Eva Coronero, and also about the sexist abuse claims at England the Australia Cyprus Cup match. At that match, and what Girls on the Ball have had to say as well, because they actually, of course, made a complaint about it. What do you think about sexism in football as an issue?
Well, you know what? Just touching on the Girls on the Ball incident, I did overhear what you were saying, and to be honest, I feel sorry for them to, having to actually be there and face that sort of situation, because it's not nice. Obviously, no sort of abuse is nice, and having to sit through that sort of incident, and even for the women that were playing on the day to have to face that, it is disgusting, and it is part of the game. I'm not going to see. The issue is now that, for me personally, with abuse now, it's because people are becoming more aware. Football has become, it's not just honed in as a man's game as it was before. It is actually spreading the doors, and it's opening up to a larger mass of people of like you said, all different backgrounds, all different sexes, all different races, all different sexual orientations, and what was once you can actually say a small community because it was just seen as a man's game. It's now a large community because it literally is turning into a world's game. And as Gezzie Fizzle always says, this is societal issues. I don't think it's something that's going to be fixed just overnight. And that's the issue we have at hand now. There's gonna be a lot more of these incidents, especially with the women's game on the uprise, with more exposure. Like I said before, in my own personal opinion, the women's game, is trying to force its way up the platform very fast, whereas the men's game grew organically. And some might disagree with that. But what I'm trying to say with the men's game, it started from workmen, went through the years of the ages, world wars, whatever, and naturally it just progressed. Whereas the women's games, it also started in that sort of era, but it wasn't actually seen as the game as a marketable game. So, but now they're trying to fast track it as a marketable game, and what's inherent in the men's game is going to spill over into the women's game. And we've seen it. We know there's sexism. We know there's racism. We know there's all sorts of issues. And I'm just trying to say it's not going to be a fast fix. It's going to be slow and hard. And a lot of doors are going to be needed to being beaten down. And I think all that can be done is for awareness campaigns to keep being flooded in the game. That's my opinion.
Well, you know what? It's interesting that you mentioned that, actually, that you mentioned that campaigns, because let's chuck this in now, because we were gonna move on to this as a special feature in a minute, but it actually does deserve coming now. She Belongs campaign. This is from Friday, 6th of March 2015, and this is actually from Women in Football. Football clubs have been asked to champion their female staff and help celebrate International Women's Day this weekend as part of a major campaign aimed at tackling sexism in the game. The month-long campaign by Women in Football, supported by Everyday Sexism, will use social media to highlight the growing number of women working in football and help encourage more to follow in their footsteps with the hashtag #SheBelongs. It will also aim to raise awareness of discrimination and sexist abuse, especially on match days, and how to report it through the hashtag #ShameOnTheGame. Now, all 92 Premier and Football League clubs have been asked to profile inspirational women, whether directors, physiotherapists, administrators, volunteers or supporters, in their matchday programs to show their commitment to equal opportunities and help celebrate International Women's Day, which was yesterday, Sunday, March 8th, 2015. Women in Football will be sharing matchday program pages via social media, tweeting at Women in Football or emailing info@womeninfootball.co.uk using the hashtag #SheBelongs. Incidents of sexist abuse or discrimination can also be made public using the #ShameOnTheGame hashtag or reported anonymously to info@womeninfootball.co.uk. Women in Football has also created a sexist briefing note, the first of its kind, aimed at helping matchday stewards and stadium safety officials to recognise sexist abuse in football stadiums. The document was drawn together using expert advice and piloted at a Premier League club this season. This is the first time that clubs have specifically been asked to focus on the issue of sexist abuse. The move to raise awareness follows Women in Football's groundbreaking industry survey in March of 2014, which found that over 66% of women employed in sport had witnessed sexism in the workplace. Over 89% of those who said they had witnessed it said they had not reported it. With #ShameOnTheGame hashtag, Women in Football hope that more men and women will feel empowered to come forward and report discrimination, such as Girls on the Ball did at the Cyprus Cup match. So Anna Kessel, chair of Women in Football, which represents over 1,200 females working in the industry, said women represent half the population and half the talent. They deserve to belong to football with equal recognition in the boardroom, workforce, and as supporters. While we recognise progress is being made, there are still too many barriers to women's progression in the industry and acceptance by the sport. This is why we are asking clubs to champion female talent, as well as raise awareness of sexist abuse and discrimination and how those affected can report it in a bid to bring about a change in attitudes. Minister for Sport Helen Grant said it is absolutely right that we champion and celebrate women who work in the football industry and play vital roles in making the game the success that it is. There's also a couple of other important quotes in regards to this as well. So I want more women to get involved in football across the board and to see it as a great industry to work in. Sexism in any shape or form should not be tolerated, so I applaud this push to encourage people to report any incidents of sexist abuse and for the promotion of inclusivity across football. Laura Bates, the founder of the Everyday Sexism Project, who are partnering in this, said we have received numerous entries from people who have experienced sexism, harassment or abuse whilst playing, watching, supporting or working in football. Whether victims are staff, players or fans, misogynistic chants and sexual harassment can mar the experience of sporting events. It is time that clubs and fans alike stand together and take responsibility for creating a space where everybody can enjoy football free from any kind of prejudice. Polly Neat, who is the chief executive of Women's Aid, working with the Premier League this season, said, we fully support women in football with their #SheBelongs campaign. Women need to know where they can report sexism and have reassurance that reports will be taken seriously. We know through our Football United Against Domestic Violence work that football can create a powerful platform for social change, and hope that all clubs join in and raise important awareness about an issue that often falls under the radar. So Women in Football aims to improve women's representation at all levels of the game by celebrating women's achievement, challenging discrimination and lobbying for change, sharing professional contacts, advice and expertise, and offering mentoring opportunities to the next generation. For further information, contact info@womeninfootball.co.uk and www.womeninfootball.co.uk and @womeninfootball on Twitter, and the #SheBelongs. That's the hashtag that you need to use, #SheBelongs. You know what? I thought that was worth mentioning now rather than going into a special feature, because at the end of the day, campaigns like this are fantastic and there needs to be more of them and they need support. The She Belongs campaign is fantastic. I said info@womeninfootball.co.uk and www.womeninfootball.co.uk and @womeninfootball on Twitter. You will have seen a conversation between us and @womeninfootball on Twitter as well. It's a case of these kind of initiatives need support because sexism needs to be driven out of the game. As said, football is inclusive, not exclusive. Would you Gezzie Gman, if you guys want to jump in on the She Belongs campaign, feel free. I just want to ask Mike Harneman actually to repeat what he said in the Skype chat about sexism Mike, what was it you said in the Skype chat earlier about it?
Yeah, basically what I said, the comment that I made was sexism in football is disgraceful behaviour. Everyone has the right to be treated equally, and basically whether that's male, female, sexual orientation, whatever, race, anything else as well that you can think of, and how they can say that is banter as well is absolutely horrific, and it needs to be stamped out at all cost.
No, definitely couldn't agree with you more. I legitimately could not agree with you more. I mean, I said sexism being labelled as banter. I said that's how racism used to get kind of swept under the rug for a number of years. Up until the last 20 years, it used to be swept under the rug as that as well. So it's similar struggles. Within that. There have been strides made, but there's still a lot more work that needs to be done, and that work cannot stop. So, Gezzie G-Man, did you want to jump in before we shift points?
Well, I think you made the majority of the points there, and obviously, I agree wholeheartedly. I think, all the organisations involved are doing fantastic work in terms of raising awareness. But, the thing that I wouldn't like to see with this is that, it's very much a flash in the pan in terms of the cooperation from the FA and the Premier League, so on and so forth. This is something that needs to go down throughout the football leagues, in association with the Women's FA, and have both FAs take a joint stand to show that they're united, and for football fans, to take a stand and show that they're united, and in their support. And I think, it's very much one of our old interviews with Football Unites Racism Divides. Take out the racism bit and just go with Football Unite. I think the thing that everybody has in common is that they are football fans. You see what I mean? And whether it's gender, sexual orientation, religion, creed, so on and so forth, any of those don't really come into it when it comes to supporting your club, or supporting your national team. So, bearing that in mind, I would say that there's no reason for this not to continue. I think if, for example, Kick It Out can reach to the level that they're at, I don't see any reason why any of, the organisations involved in this campaign can't reach a similar level. There's absolutely no reason for that not to be the case. So, I think overall great work is being done, but as you rightly pointed out, this great work needs to continue because there's more work to do.
Yeah. I mean, Jamie Bailey, you've said something quite interesting in the Skype chat. Would you like to repeat that? Jamie, you there?
Yeah. Sorry. Just coming back off the high of the obviously the United Arsenal game. Just looking at what was actually mentioned. I forgot the name of the campaign that's actually being put forward.
The She Belongs, the She Belongs campaign.
It says it itself, She Belongs.
Yeah.
If anybody remembers, somebody, I can't remember the name, but a female manager was put in place of a French club.
Of Evian,
League
yeah.
Two.
Yeah, of Evian. And she, it all kind of went sour, but...
It went sour, and you can see why it went sour, because it was almost a case of she was being put in a position where she had her plans, but everybody wanted to go above her because of her being a female. It's the same thing with racism. I think if people are saying that it's banter, it's not. I don't like it. I don't endorse it. It's almost as bad as singing. And I'm probably not happy with it, but it's almost as bad as singing a Spurs song when you're an Arsenal fan. Same thing with what happened at Chelsea with PSG. And it just goes in that line. I think if more people are stating that they're not happy with something rather than keeping quiet about it, then it might just gather a bit more momentum. And maybe if we can get more awareness about it, there's going to be a lot more changes to be made. Obviously, the people at the top need to listen, but the more that they're aware of it, the more they can't ignore it. Just like the election coming up soon enough, for me, not everybody's going to vote. But that's down to a generation thing. And now that we're in this generation where we can make a difference, the more people know that football is available to women, to young children, to men of a sexual nature, they should be allowed to do what they want regardless, and not feel that they have to hide behind it.
But see, I think you've got it. I think you've got it spot on there. It's a case of football can be such a great vehicle for change, but often the powers that be drop the ball, and that's what I'm hoping doesn't happen with this. And also, being confident enough to report something is half the battle, but also knowing that something is going to be done about it is the other half of the battle. And if you think that something's pointless and that nothing's going to be done about it, then you're going to have a lot less confidence in reporting it. So they very much intertwine. And if the power, as long as the powers that be come out, and they've been kind of slow so far in terms of coming out with any sort of statement saying anything in terms of draconian punishments for people. But the fact of the matter is, She Belongs, those sort of campaigns there, and this girl can, trying to get more women included in football and people included in football, and it's one of them was that's what's got people have got to feel confident enough to do things like girls on the ball. Sophie and Rachel were confident enough. They even admitted, because it was the army with putting out this sexist abuse, they didn't want to offend people, but they felt it was important enough to actually articulate it and make the complaint. But a lot of people will have those sort of quandaries, if you will. So it's one of them was we need to support people who are hearing this abuse. We need to support people when they want to report it, because I said reporting is the first step to eradicate it. And Brad Hicks on Twitter has said sexism has absolutely, in capital letters, absolutely no place in football, and it's the truth. It has no place in football. No prejudice should be allowed in football. Whether sexism, racism, homophobia, it shouldn't have a place, because it should be. I mean, the game was, and will forever be, and should be inclusive, not exclusive. We say we the people for the people, and football should have that same sort of slogan as well. That's what I reckon. I mean, Jamie, you wanted to add something before we have to move on. Yeah,
I just wanted to enlighten people on this situation and make them think a bit. If this is what's happening in football, and it came from the army, then what chance have we got for the army to actually take football? How can we take the army seriously if this is what they're doing as well? That's basically my question. They're doing, I don't want to discredit what they're doing in over in Afghanistan and all of those places. And by all means, I want them to come back. The problem is what are they actually? Are they doing the same thing in the army? And are they actually doing anything about it? Because as far as it looks, the army have now got a bad reputation over a few comments.
But the thing is, you got to contextualize this. As said, it's a moronic minority, so that always has to be brought into context. It's not a majority doing this; it's a few bad apples spoiling the bunch. And as I said, tarring everyone with the same brush is nearly as bad as bad as what is happening, because it's prejudice in another form. So it's one of them ones, but this is a start. And as I said, football is a microcosm of society. I've said that on many occasions, but that is part of football's power. It's a microcosm of society, but the fact of the matter is, there's an opportunity here to change things, and that's what we need to do. Get behind campaigns such as She Belongs. Get behind entities such as Kick It Out, and make the ignorant and the moronic realize that you can't get away with this stuff anymore, and that people shouldn't have to tolerate it, and people won't tolerate it either. That's where we need to go.
Do you know, I just want to also jump on and say though, and stress.
Yeah, go on.
I do feel with the sexism thing, it's an identity thing as well. Yeah, and I'm not trying to sound old-fashioned or whatever, but as I said before, because the men's game has had such, or the title, the men's game has had such a hold on football, yeah, it's like that is what football is identified with. And I think until the women's game really builds a real identity for itself, you know, where it's like its own education machine, just like the women's NBA. Whereas I doubt there probably is sexism over there, but I doubt you would hear it and in such a rife manner in this day and age as you did when it first started. You know, and until the women's game is really out there and, you know, really appreciated by young, it's ready to tap into the young psyche as well. So they're not growing and corrupted with the views and the attitudes of potentially the older generation who just see it as banter. You know, the young psyche and the young members of society will obviously be more molded, you know, for the game and, you know, attitudes within the game. That's just how I'm looking at it.
That's an interesting one, because the youth are the future. The youth are the future, but we've got but the fact of the matter is we've got to start it. We've got to start it somewhere, and this is the starting point of it. This is the starting point, and of course, the women's game is trying to create its own identity. But if you've got sexist attitudes permeating the game and permeating people and permeating the powers that be, it's going to somewhat block that. So if you can at least somewhat dispel some of the myths around the women's game and get rid of at least some of the sexism that is rife in society, then you can help the women's game form its own identity. And that's one of the important things.